New engine just dropped, who dis? Hey guys, Otak here, back with another competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video. So today we're going to be talking about the new engine that has just graced us with its presence, Melodious. The Melodious is a deck that's existed for a while, and thanks to the new support that came out in Legacy, the deck is actually a lot better, to the point where it's like a tier 2 strategy. However, there's a new engine running around known as the Melodious engine that has been kind of making its way into damn near every deck. Since the release of Legacy of Destruction, I have seen nothing but Melodious Snake Eye, Melodious Voiceless, and now Melodious Chimera. And I'm here to tell you that I personally don't think the engine's that great. Now, don't get me wrong, the Melodious engine is strong and it creates some very powerful boards. But in my personal opinion, the Melodious engine creates what I like to call win more strategies. This means that you're already in a winning situation, but instead you're going to keep going to really solidify to your opponent that they're not winning. And my other problem with this engine is that it completely removes the grind game out of any deck that it's in. I think realistically, the only reason Melodious as an engine is doing so well at the current moment in the TCG is simply just because it's currently the new big thing. It's a new format, it's a new engine. Not everyone is familiar with what the cards do, so they don't know where to interrupt it or how to interact with it. But I do think that over time, when people start to figure out this engine, it'll become less favorable. Because like I said, it removes the grind game out of any deck that it's thrown in. If you're playing out past turn 3 and you top deck any one of these Melodious cards, you're probably going to lose at this point. And the engine really only thrives when it goes uninterrupted, which the argument could of course be made that if your regular deck just went uninterrupted, it would create just as powerful of a board, further driving the point home that it just creates a win more strategy. But let's go ahead and take a look at the engine, examine each card so that you, the viewer, know how to play the engine, but also how to play against it. So typically it's an 8-card engine, 9 if you want to add one of the optional cards, but it also eats up a good majority of your extra deck. But let's take a look at it first. So you're going to run one copy of Couplet, the Melodious Songstress. This card's pendulum effect reads, if you do not control any face-up monsters other than Melodious monsters, you can add a Melodious spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And its monster effect reads that if this card is added to your hand except by drawing it for your normal draw, you can reveal this card and special summon one level 4 or lower Melodious monster from your graveyard. If a Melodious monster is special summoned to your field while this card is face-up in your extra deck, except during this damage step, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. So essentially, this is a poplar for Melodious, but also when it's in the Pendulum Zone, you use it to search out Melodious Concerto, which is the other fusion spell we'll get to in a minute. We're also running 3 Refrain, the Melodious Songstress. This card's pendulum effect, not used too often, but it does come up. This card can target one Melodious fusion monster you control, send one Melodious monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, the targeted monster gains attack equal to the level of that monster times 200 until the end of the turn. Like I said, doesn't come up too often, but sometimes it does. The monster effect reads, if this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Melodious monster from your deck to your hand, except Refrain. If a Melodious fusion monster is special summoned to your field while this card is face up in the extra deck, except during the damage step, you can put this in your Pendulum Zone. So I'm sure you can already kind of guess the pattern here. You're going to normal or special summon Refrain to search out Couplet, Couplet to be able to special summon another Refrain from the graveyard, and then be able to kind of just combo off there. Couplet, be able to search off the Melodious Concerto, which of course reads, fusion summon one fairy fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, field, and or Pendulum Zone. If a Melodious fusion monster is sent to the graveyard while this card is in your graveyard, even during the damage step, you can place this card on the bottom of your deck, then draw one card. Now, the perks of both of these effects is you can use them both in the same turn, and 9 times out of 10, you're doing that anyways. And then we are running 3 Ostinato, which is the starter, and it's essentially branded fusion for Melodious, but if you control no monsters, fusion summon one Melodious fusion monster from your extra deck using 2 monsters from your hand and or deck as fusion material. During the end phase of this turn, destroy the fusion monster summoned by this effect, and if you do, all fusion materials that were used for its fusion summon are in the graveyard, you can special summon all of them. That effect never comes up, but it is there. So we're going to go over the combos here in a minute, but essentially, Ostinato is your starter. You're going to use that to use Refrains and then just kind of pop off. The extra deck monsters in question that we consistently are using are Botcha, the Melodious Maestra, which requires 2 Melodious monsters, not very specific. While you control this fusion summoned card, the activated effects of your Melodious fusion monsters cannot be negated. Now, there is a ruling going around that you can imperm Botcha, and its effects will still be negated because imperm targets as its activated effect, essentially, and then it's a continuous, not activated effect to negate Botcha. So you can only use each of the following effects of Botcha once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can special summon one Melodious monster from your deck. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Melodious monster in your graveyard except Botcha and special summon it in defense position. So this every time is going to be your target off of Ostinato because it gives you so much gas. You summon it off Ostinato and then summon one of the materials that was used to fusion summon it. One of the optional, because you can kind of live without this, but a lot of the engine, a lot of people that are running the engine run this upcoming card, which is Schuberta, I believe is how it's pronounced, the Melodious Maestra. Again, 2 Melodious monsters. During either player's turn, you can target up to 3 cards in any graveyard, banish them, and if you do, this card gains 200 attack for each. This card is kind of a Snake Eye counter because you can. It says during either player's turn, so you can kind of just do that to get rid of materials out of your opponent's graveyard. It's primarily Snake Eyes, but it can be used for other purposes, of course. It's very powerful. It's like a super rare, and it's got like $9 limit right now. It's kind of getting bought out everywhere. It's very powerful. Like I said, out of the entire engine, this is kind of the one you can live without. But if you have it in your bulk, go for it. Now for like the rest of the engine, essentially for the extra deck, they are running 1 Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, 1 Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, and 1 Cross Sheep. And instead of explaining to you really what they're in here for, I'm just going to go ahead and show you. We're going to jump on over to the combo. Okay, so the combo is pretty simple. Now, keep in mind, I am going to be link summoning IP Masquerena instead of Cross Sheep because I am running Voiceless Voice Melodious. However, Cross Sheep is usually the play. I just preferred IP for this build. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't really change up the build a whole lot. It just makes it easier to do rank 4 plays later on, but I digress. So our starting card, this is the card that kind of gets it all rolling, is Ostinato. So we're going to go ahead and activate Ostinato to use 2 Refrain to summon out the Botcha. We're going to go Botcha Effect to summon out a Refrain, go Refrain Effect to be able to add Couplet to summon out a Refrain from the graveyard, and then Refrain to add the Concerto. We'll use Concerto to send Refrain and Couplet to rescale themselves. However, Dueling Book doesn't have that command, so we have to add them to my hand first. Scale into, or overlay into Odd Eyes Absolute, and then we go ahead and do a handful of several different things. So we are going to go into IP Masquerena, which is going to set off our Concerto in the graveyard, our Botcha in the graveyard, and our Absolute in the graveyard. Absolute is going to be chain 3 to chain block all the other stuff. He's going to summon out the Vortex Dragon. The Botcha is going to summon out the Refrain that is still in the graveyard, and the Concerto is going to go ahead and draw us a card. Doesn't really matter here, but we're going to then link off into Exceed the Pendulum. Her on-summon effect is going to add one of the Refrains that is in the extra deck back to our hand. And then we are going to use her second effect to special summon that Refrain. We are then going to link summon away into a 2-stack Appaloosa. So just off of Ostinato alone, we have an Omni Negate from Vortex Dragon, and we have an Appaloosa with 2 Monster Negates, and a drawn card, which in this case just so happens to be a hand trap. Very powerful, but like I said, it kind of just creates more win more strategies. It's really good in like Voiceless Voice in the sense that Voiceless Voice doesn't really need its extra deck all that much, so it's not really tight. The problem is that Voiceless Voice breaks hard enough as it is, and unless you're opening Refrain or Ostinato, you don't have really access to any plays off of the Melodious engine. So, I just don't think it's that great, and like I said, it just destroys the grind game possibilities that whatever deck you're running this engine in has. Now, I do want to say that I do think the Melodious deck is a very good deck. Like I said, it's a tier 2 strategy easily. With no doubt in my mind. But I think the Melodious engine is a little overhyped, and once people start realizing how to interact with this engine and how to properly prepare for it, it's going to stop seeing less and less success. But I, of course, want to hear what you guys think down in the comments below, so let me know what you think of the engine, and realistically, what are you running it in? But also be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you're not already and you like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content. But with that, I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!